Hello everybody and welcome back to another tutorial. So this one is on hair and some do's and don'ts, some common errors I see lots of people make when trying to draw hair. Hair is by far the most difficult thing to master in my opinion with drawing portraits. So starting with the don'ts, as you can see I've started straight away with a dark pencil, um, drawing each individual strand, blending with my finger and then going back in, just trying to get more dark places. But you can see it doesn't work. The head is still white, so technically what you're doing is drawing a negative. So you can still see white head through the hair, and you're seeing a negative on top of the head. Um, so that doesn't work. There's no layers in the don't version, and yeah, it took me about 2 minutes. So for the do version, as you can see, I'm starting with a much lighter pencil. That's my 2H pencil, which is what I use most of the time to get my outlines down. Um, the biggest thing with hair is you need to view it as clumps rather than individual hairs. If you look at the hair and view it as individual hairs, you end up with the don't version. So you need to look at it and look at the clumps and then follow the way the uh, hair is flowing in that clump. So, and you also need to work out which clump is in front and which clump is behind. So, for example, where I am drawing now at the bottom, the three um, triangles at the bottom, they will eventually show darker hair underneath, and then the hair around the white bits around it will eventually be the lighter hair on top because this is a blonde lady. So once you've worked out which way the hair is flowing and which way the clumps are going and what's in front of what and what's behind of what, then it really is as simple as just following it and filling it in. It's a good idea to look on your reference image first before you start, and work out what's in front of what and which is going to be edge to values. And you're still doing exactly the same with how light works, edge to values and gradation, still following what the reference image is showing you. You're still putting the darks where the darks are on the reference image, and you're putting the highlights where the highlights are. But if you don't understand the core principles of edge to values and gradation and how light works, it's very, very, very difficult to follow a reference image and get hair looking the way you want it to. It is so difficult. But if you, like I keep saying, if you understand the principles and you understand that if a piece of hair is disappearing behind another piece of hair, as in clumps, as in one clump is disappearing behind another clump, there will be an edge to value, and the clump that's disappearing behind the top clump will be darker where it recesses behind that clump of hair. So again, making sure everything gets darker where there's less light. So as it goes into the recesses where it goes behind the clumps, it gets darker as it goes in until it reaches its darkest point. But everything gets darker. So every once you've filled it in, you've got all the strands of hair in there. All of the strands of hair need to get darker as they go into where there's less light as well. And you'll notice on this one, I blended with a blending stump. Don't ever blend with your fingers. it will just ruin all of the hard work that you're putting in. So again, just understand how light works. The more you practice it and the more you experiment with edge to values and gradation, the better you will be at it. And the better you get at it, the easier it is to spot them in the hair and decide where they should be. Like that clump I'm doing now, you can clearly see is coming out in front of the clump that's behind it. It's recessing down behind the hair where it's getting darker. Without understanding edge to values and gradation, I think that would be very difficult to um, achieve just from looking at the reference image. I know some people do it that way, and fair play to them, but I think that's a very difficult way of doing it. I think that's when you have to rely on natural talent. And so, as you've seen, I've used different pencils, so don't do it all with one pencil. You need at least two different pencils, one darker, one lighter. Um, and you need to get layers in there. You need the midtones and the highlights and the darks, but it's not just midtones, highlights, and darks, because the midtones, there's 10 different midtones, and then the darks, there's 6 different darks. So it's just following the reference image, getting it all in the value that you want it to be in. If you go too dark, wherever it's too dark, use your eraser, pull some off. I am now using my eraser to take out some highlights. That's the Tombow Mono Zero eraser, which is easily the best eraser for taking out highlights, hair highlights especially. Make sure you keep your pencil as sharp as you can. You need a really sharp pencil to get the individual strands of hair when you are filling it in, which is what I'm doing now. I'm filling in the darks, but I've also gone round, got some strands of hair in, but the strands of hair are following the direction that the hair's growing in. So you need to really carefully look at your reference image and decide which way the hair is growing and follow the flow of the hair. And like I said, the more you practice, the better you get. And yeah, the first few times I tried to draw hair, it was like, how do people do this? But as I say, the more you practice, the easier it becomes. And what I'm doing now is just going back in and making sure that everything gets darker where there's less light, making sure that all my edge to values are correct, using the blending stump to blend out some of those edge to values. And the blending stump's really good. Like now what I'm doing is just following my reference image and looking where the shadows are. And you can just, because the blending stump is dirty, because it's already used for blending, you can go over where your shadows are, and then like what I'm doing now, I'm going back with the eraser and just shaping the shadows. Make sure that they're the correct shape and that they're flowing in and out correctly with the gradation. So the blending stump is another really good tool to use. And also when you're erasing, when you get bits of eraser all over your page, especially doing like this, when you're doing hair, you get tiny little bits all over your page. Don't wipe those off with your hand, because again, you'll wipe oils and grime and stuff off your hand onto your page. And the graphite sticks differently if there's oil somewhere and it gathers, and you you can't get it off. So use a brush to sweep away any bits of eraser, but you do it really gently. You don't want to brush all the graphite around, because like now I'm getting details in now. I don't really want to be brushing really heavily over it. But this is the final touches now. This is my 8B, and it's just going in and getting the real darkest darks. But they're not everywhere. They are in specific places. So just make sure you follow your reference image and take on board the edge to values and gradation. And yeah, I think you'll be on the right tracks to keep practicing. So that's about it. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed my tutorial, make sure you check out my other do's and don'ts and subscribe, and I'll be back soon with another one. Thanks everyone.